Welcome back to Grief Inspired. I have somebody that left me a comment saying that she lost her 16-year-old son, that she feels so broken, and that every day is a struggle just to exist. It's a hard conversation. It's a hard thing to even think about when we think about losing our children, but it's an important conversation to have. So today we're going to talk about that very situation. Welcome back, and thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being part of the community, for your comments, for your questions. These videos really come so much from my communication with all of you, and I find what you need and what you're going through. And then I am just a vessel to share those things. And I got a comment recently on one of my videos. A woman lost her 16-year-old child. It was her son. And she says, I feel so broken. And she says, every day is a struggle to just exist. And, you know, my heart goes out to her because those words are so true. And they are not words of feeling victimized by her grief, or they're not words of anger. They're not words of anything other than desperation. And despair. And despair, I talk about in the first course, or the first class of the course that I teach, because despair is a scary place. It's where we don't want to be, but it is a very real emotion. And the definition of despair is being without hope and feeling like there is no hope. And this is how she's feeling, and I think it's very valid. I remember feeling that way after my son died and thinking, why do I want to go on? And why would I want to continue to live like this? The pain is beyond anything I personally had experienced. And I think it's, you know, I always talk that the amount of pain that you experience is equivalent to the amount of love you have. And there is a mother-child bond or parent-child bond that is just so intense that I think it makes that pain so intense. And again, it can be hard to hear, but it is true that it's because you had so much love that you're hurting so much. And I'm sorry that that's the way it is. But I get struggling to exist. I get wondering why to wake up at all, why to even get started, what should I do? And wondering that, like, why even continue to exist? That's a hard place to be. And the solution is to, one, sit in your pain and be okay with it, and don't make yourself wrong for feeling how you feel, and know that it's not going to feel like this forever, that you will process, you will learn, you will think on things, you will ruminate a lot, and we grow because of our grief. If grief is a change agent, it forces us, whether we want to or not, to change, because our life changes so much. And feeling broken, I think so many of us can relate to feeling broken when we're grieving, and we're not broken. Grieving and being in grief and going through the grief process is not fundamentally being broken. It's something different for all of us. It's something that we don't know how to do. It's something that we don't have an education about, most of us. If you're like me, I didn't know anything. It's why I'm here today, is because I want to educate so many of you and to just be able to tell you, like, you are not broken. like what you're experiencing, these feelings of despair and wondering, why you exist, and looking at the meaning of life, and being, spirituality, why do I believe what I believe, and where is the faith when I need it? That is par for the course. And I think that should be okay. Like, we should, lean into that and just like go ahead and let yourself think those things. I think the problem comes when we make it mean things that aren't good for us, when we start to beat ourselves up, when we say I'm broken, when I used to say I'm crazy, I'm going crazy, when we make ourselves wrong, when we try to tell ourselves we should be better by now. It's been this amount of time, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, why do I feel worse? Right? We don't always want to tell people who are early in their grief that, well, once you get to the year, you've passed all the major milestones, but sometimes it gets a little harder again. And that's what grief does, is there's times when it lightens up a little bit, and then there's times when it comes rushing back and you feel like you've gone all the way back to the beginning. But that's not true. It's your brain and your mind allowing you to process more and more of your grief. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. Recently I had a situation, and I think I shared it here. This year, my son Jackson would have been 13. And I have done so much work in my grief and processed, and I've done all of it. And I was surprised that for whatever reason, his 13th birthday was hard again. And, and I had to look at it and I had to say, well, why? And I realized that 13 is such a milestone for our children. And to think that he would have been 13 this year. And I see my 10-year-old now and I think, wow, he's becoming such his own person. And he's, taller than, almost as tall as I am now. He's not taller yet, but he's gonna be soon. And just seeing him grow into like a full person on his own, separate and independent of me, even though he's still reliant on me, is such a blessing. And I didn't get that with Jackson. And I wonder, what would he be like as a 13-year-old boy? And what would our life be like if my son Mason had an older 13-year-old brother? And the two boys maybe bickering and fighting, or would he be more protective of Mason? Or how would Mason be different because he did have a brother who he doesn't have right now, physically in this world? He didn't grow up with Jackson. And so all of those things kind of came crashing down on me unexpectedly. And I was really surprised, and it really took me back, and it took me a minute to say, okay, well, this is part of the process, and what can I learn from this, and how can I grow? But going back to the person who, lost her 16-year-old, like there are no words to say how much that must hurt for you. And so it's looking into and saying, okay, how do I get through this? How do I be gentle on myself? How do I embrace the 16 years that I did have? How do I be grateful for that? And then how can I share him in the world, who he was, what he brought to me, and what do I want other people to know, right? So many people will say, go home and hug your kids tonight, right? Because every day is a gift and none of it is promised. And that goes for anybody in our life. And that is a lesson that grief brings, that people who have not been through the grief process, who don't understand your emotions and what you're going through, and the pain and the despair and the lack of control and feeling broken and wanting things to be different and not knowing what's going on. These things they're part of the process, and they add to who we are, and they bring more empathy, they bring compassion. They make us want to not only isolate, because I think that's par for the course, but eventually it also makes us realize that we need to connect, and we need to find a way to do that. And whether it's as simple as connecting to me here on this video, or connecting to somebody's comment and replying to their comment, on my YouTube videos here, or joining my Facebook group and connecting there and being able to email with somebody who's in a similar situation as you, so that you're in it together. And when you have a hard day, you can call them. And then when they have a hard day, they can call you, and we can support each other. I think that you know, that is the best that we can make out of a situation that's less than ideal. And I always want to encourage everybody to say, what can you give back to the world? What, because this happened to you, what do other people need to know? Share that. Share that. Share who you are. Share your authenticity, your realness. I think that the post that this woman put on was so real and so authentic. And she wasn't trying to prove anything. She was just expressing, this is what I'm going through. And I love that so much, because that's how we heal. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of the community. Please like and subscribe this video so that you can share with other people what you're learning, and so that other people can find me, and maybe their pain can get a little bit lighter in this grief process that we're all going through, because you know, I want to help. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.